I want to ride the technology wave because I'm a huge believer in technology and the advances that technology and the benefits technology brings to the human race. And I just thought silver was a really good way to play the technology. You know, the world is in quite a unusual. I don't actually remember, so much, issues going around the world. The world seems to be so unstable right now. It's just, you look at Latin America, United States, Canada, now Eastern Europe, Asia. There's messes all over the place. No wonder why the central banks have been buying so much gold over the last year or two. Obviously, they know there's something up, and this big reset or whatever is planned by these super elite. Maybe this whole Russian invasion was part of the plan. Who knows? They seem to be leaving Putin alone, despite the threats that they were, suggesting prior to this invasion. Now that he's invaded, they're all backing off and saying, "Okay, well, let's give it a month and see what happens." And so it's pretty strange. You just kind of wonder whether this is all just part of the whole game that all these politicians are playing. Well, it's a huge concern, and it's the Canadian government came out and said the same thing today. Prepare a message to the corporations within Canada. Prepare yourself for a cyber attack from Russia. Whether this is a false flag, who knows? But I read something just about a month ago that once this whole COVID thing kind of goes sideways and ends finally, and we can get back to some normality in our lives, that there's some plan that they're going to shut down. The governments are going to shut down the worldwide grid for 2 or 3 days, blaming it on sunspots, and basically turn all the electricity off. God, hopefully that doesn't happen. But there's some very odd things going on around the world right now, and my daughter one of my daughters asked me yesterday, is her money safe in the bank accounts, in her bank? And I can't answer that question. I don't know. I try to be optimistic, and I am an optimist, and hence I'm able to build companies and so on. And I build them because I think I'm adding value and think I'm bringing something to the human race. And I look at what our staff has created. One of the most respected silver companies on the planet, and from scratch, 19 years in. And you just kind of wonder, what's really going on out there, when you see these kinds of things. And it creates a huge amount of concern for me. And, the direction that we're going as a human race is not particularly pleasing. It's very much along the same lines as, this whole cyber attack and, sunspots, whether it's sunspots, whether it's the Russians or the Chinese, or maybe it's the Americans doing it themselves, who knows. But, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan of Bitcoin. And because, you lose electricity, you lose the internet, your Bitcoin's worth nothing. And at least gold and silver, physical metal, that's where it's at. And I continually tell people, they have to have some of their money, some of their net worth in physical metal, whether it's silver or gold. Silver is in small quantities; it's easy to carry around. God forbid if we actually need to use it to go buy something. But if it does get that bad, which you kind of wonder, who would have predicted what the last 2 years? 10 years ago, you would have never predicted that. Would you ever predicted the Canadian government did what they did? Is this going to repeat itself in other countries around the world? Canada doesn't generally be the leader. Canada is normally a follower, and usually the United States is the leader. For Canada to do something that they've done like they've done in the last couple of weeks, I'm not sure what that means for our future, but I can't see it being very good. Yeah, I put together, one of the largest copper companies, in the early 90s, 92, 93. And I left that company in 2000, and I dabbled around in the internet market and watch crash. NASDAQ, dropped 80% over a period of, 3 years from 2000, into 2003, which really lit up the resource sector. And that was when gold was, bottoming out in 2001, 2002 at $250 an ounce, and silver was down at $5 an ounce. And I wanted to get back into the mining sector, and then I looked around and I thought about putting a gold company together, but there was just so many gold companies around. And I'm a big believer in gold. I think everyone should have gold, but coming from a copper company, I'm really a supply demand fundamentalist. And when I started looking at silver, I just was blown away by the supply demand story. We didn't have EVs back then. We didn't have solar panels back then, for the most part, anyways. But I looked at cell phones. I thought cell phones was really the place. I remember when the first cell phone from Motorola came out. That's how old I am. So, I remember black and white TVs, color televisions, fax machines. I witnessed all this stuff coming into being. This technology, I want to ride the technology wave because I'm a huge believer in technology and the advances that technology and the benefits technology brings to the human race. And I just thought silver was a really good way to play the technology race. And since then, we've seen now two big markets: the EV market, which is taking up over 10% of world supply, approaching actually likely 20% this year, maybe next year. But we're producing as an industry 800 million ounces of silver a year in 2019, which is the last numbers I saw, because there wasn't any official numbers that came out in 2020, as far as I know. But we consumed 65 million ounces of silver in 2019, spread over 6 million electric cars. So you do the math, and I don't know what the 2021 numbers are. I'm dying to see them. But I saw an article out of an analyst in London about a month ago, and he's predicting that the solar panel industry is going to consume 140 million ounces of silver in 2022. Wow. I don't know what the electric car industry is going to consume, but you've got two brand new buyers of silver that are now consuming almost 30% of the world's supply of silver. And these buyers didn't exist a decade ago. For sure, at some point, it'll break, right? If you're talking about the 95 million cars, and I mentioned earlier, about 6 million cars consume 65 million ounces of silver in 2019. So I could easily do the math, but people can do it themselves. But that works out to an awful lot of silver, more than we're producing probably. And where does that break? At some point, the manipulators who banged the heck out of the metal yesterday, that was one of the most amazing days I've ever seen. Where we had $100 move in gold up and down, and silver, went through 25.50 and then broke through 24. And today it's actually a gain below 24. It's just, that doesn't happen in a natural market. So, these people that are playing this game have no clue about really the fundamentals of the physical demand in the market. These are guys in high towers on Bay Street just trading numbers on a computer screen. And these markets tend to be quite illiquid. They're easy to move around. The entire silver market, is you do the math, 850 million ounces are produced a year times, $25 or $24. That's just, Apple could buy the entire silver industry probably with pocket change. But yet we trade 1 billion ounces a day in the paper markets, and we only produce 850 million ounces a year, or 800 million ounces a year. So that's a lot of leverage in a market, and the paper market has control over pricing, which is itself it shouldn't be. The miners and industry should be involved in pricing, based on true supply demand fundamentals. We see that in the uranium market. We see it in the oil market. These markets are much more legitimate markets than the precious metals markets. So we need $100 silver prices because the miners need the incentive to make the investment. And the numbers that when during the lockdowns, I was doing research as well, and there's about 95 million automobiles produced every year. 2020 was obviously a low number, but on average over the last decade, that's approximately how many cars get produced each year. And there was only 6 million cars. 6 million of the 95 million were electric cars.
Wow.
Yeah. So if governments want to replace fuel combustion cars by 2030 or 2040, that's a big change. And you now see Audi and Volkswagen and BMW, and and of course the U.S. manufacturers as well. We're seeing more and more automobile companies producing electric cars. So that 6 million is probably a much bigger number because that's a bit of an old number. But nevertheless, that's a ton of silver. And if it's about a kilo of silver per electric car.
Okay.
You'll never get that number out of the auto industry because they won't tell you. They're paranoid about telling you because they don't want anyone to know how much metal they're consuming. But to get a silver mine producing, it's a minimum of 10 years. So, and that's if everything goes really smoothly. So you drill a hole and you discover economic silver. You're going to drill it out over a period of 4 to 5 years to make sure there's enough silver there. At the same time, you'll be doing permitting, talking with the governments, trying to, get this thing done. Then you got to finance the darn thing. And then you're going to construct it. And constructing, depending on the size, is going to take anywhere between 3 to 5 years. So from first discovery, it's a minimum of 10 years. In the case of Ermitaño, which is First Majestic's latest producing mine, it just came on stream in November. That was 6 years from discovery. But we had a mill already built because it's only 4 kilometers away from our mill. So that was, thank goodness we had that mill there when we made that discovery. But if we didn't have the mill, we would now be in construction, and it would be another couple of years, so 8 to 10 years. But a lot of mines, and that's Mexico. Mexico tends to be a bit of an easier jurisdiction. But if it's in Canada or the United States, you're talking 15, 20 years. And sometimes if you're in Alaska, forget it, you'll probably never get a permit. So, you could find a great asset, great ore body in Alaska, and 50 years from now, if you're lucky, you might get a permit. So it's, the miners won't spend the money to supply the industry with the amount of copper and silver that the industries need to follow the Green New Deal. It's impossible.